Hi, Jerry Mona with Boater Input. In this video, I'm going to share with you the 5 things you must do before you put your boat away for the winter. And at the end of this video, I will share a few extra bonus tips too to help protect your investment. So stick around for that. The first thing you'll want to do is to make sure you wash your boat. Over the season, dirt, marine growth, and water spots build up. And over the winter, they can stain or damage your finish. And if your boat will be stored outside, it's also a good idea to apply a coat of wax. That extra layer of protection helps shield the gel coat or paint from moisture and the sun, which could cause oxidation while your boat sits out there. The second is to change your oil and your gear lube. Old oil sitting in your engine all winter contains acids and contaminants that can corrode internal parts and or settle and create sludge, which could inhibit the ability of your oil to get to critical passages in your engine. So by changing it now, you're giving your engine fresh, clean protection during storage. The same goes for the gear lube in your lower unit. Besides getting rid of any contaminants, changing your gear lube is critical to ensuring you don't have any residual water in your gear case that could freeze and crack during cold weather. And if your boat will be stored for a long period, consider fogging the engine as well. This coats the internal components with a thin layer of oil, preventing rust and corrosion while it's not being used. The third tip is it deals with your boat's batteries. Now, this is one of the most common points of failure when boats come out of storage in the springtime. And replacing batteries can be fairly expensive. But how you store them depends on the type that you have. For lead acid batteries, that includes flooded, AGM, or gel, you want to keep them fully charged. If they sit partially discharged, they can develop what's called sulfation, which permanently reduces their capacity. Now, you can either put them on a smart charger that maintains a full charge automatically, or if you don't have one, check and recharge them every month or so during storage. Now, for lithium batteries, the rules are very different. They don't suffer from sulfation, and so it's actually better to store them at about half charge, somewhere between 40 and 60%. Keeping them at 100% all winter puts stress on the cells and can shorten their life. Lithium batteries also self-discharge very slowly, so you can usually leave them disconnected for months at a time. Though it's still important to check them a couple of times during the winter. Now, no matter what type you have, it's best to bring them indoors if you can, or at least store them somewhere that is cool and dry, and always disconnect them from the boat. Even small electronics like stereos or sensors can slowly drain your battery over several months. So taking care of your batteries this way will help ensure they're ready to go when the weather warms back up. Now, the fourth tip is to top off your fuel tank and add a stabilizer. And this is very important. Gasoline can go stale in as little as 30 days, and ethanol blended fuel can attract water and cause what's called phase separation. So by filling your tank and adding a stabilizer, you're keeping the fuel fresh. And if your gas happens to have a little bit of ethanol in it, adding an ethanol treatment specifically is critical. In fact, I just bought another bottle for my boat right here. This is what I use. This is a stable ethanol treatment. And I'll leave a link to that in the video description. I simply add a ½ ounce for every 5 gallons of gas that I put in. And I do this all year round, but it's especially critical if your engine is going to be sitting for a long period. Adding this will deter any moisture in your gas tank from combining with the ethanol molecules to form that separate water layer, again known as phase separation. And that can do significant damage to your engine, so you want to be careful with that. Now, finally, you should cover your boat before you put it away, of course, but do it the right way. Before you put the cover on, make sure to trim your engine all the way down. This allows any water to drain out of the gear case so it doesn't freeze and crack the housing. Then cover your boat securely with a vented cover. But ventilation is important to reduce mold and mildew growth, especially if you live in a humid environment or store your boat outside. That's because during the day, the temperature under the cover can warm up significantly higher than the outside air. But when night comes and it cools back down, condensation can form, which can create a breeding ground for mildew. So what I tend to do is prop open all my hatches for better air circulation, and then make sure your cover is vented to avoid trapping moisture in. Now, even if you shrink wrap your boat, you can easily and inexpensively add air vents to help keep your interior dry. And for extra protection, or if you live in a humid area, you might also want to add moisture absorbers, like damp rid around the interior of your boat. Now, for those of you with sterndrives or inboards, there's a critical step you also need to do in addition to the 5 things we just covered. You must drain the water from your engine block. Any water left inside can freeze, expand, and crack the block or manifolds, and that's one of the most expensive repairs you can have. Many modern engines make this easy with drain plugs or valves that you can open. And if you're confident your block drains completely and leave those valves open all winter, that's all you may need to do. In fact, that's all I do with my sterndrive boat. That way, if it warms up and there's a nice winter day, I can take my sterndrive boat out. I just close the valve before using it, and then open the valve again at the end of the day to let it drain back out. But in some cases, especially if the engine that you have is more complex, has more complex plumbing, or may not drain fully, adding antifreeze is a safer play. It not only protects against missed water pockets, but also leaves a protective coating inside to fight corrosion. And if your engine has a closed cooling system, antifreeze is not optional, it's really required. So the rule of thumb is draining may be sufficient if you can drain your engine block fully and it doesn't have a closed cooling system. But if you're unsure or you want an extra peace of mind, then adding a marine safe antifreeze is the way to go. Now, if your boat has freshwater tanks, ballast, or live wells, you also need to make sure that they are drained completely. Even a little bit of water left in these systems can freeze and crack fittings, hoses, or the tanks themselves. So at this point, we've discussed the critical steps that apply to most every boater. Now I want to go even further, and there are a few bonus steps that aren't strictly required, but think of these as smart extra credit tips for protecting your investment during the winter. Now the first tip is to grease your engine if you have an outboard motor. Now, I've created a separate video where I discuss exactly how to do that, and I'll provide a link to that in the video description. But the key things that you'll want to hit are your tilt tube, swivel bracket, and even your prop shaft. Those 3 things. The second bonus tip is to not forget about your trailer. If your boat will sit on a trailer all winter, check the tire pressure and top it off so that you can minimize flat spots. Also, covering your tires will protect them from sun damage and should increase the life of your tires if you store your boat outside. Finally, one of the last things you want to do is pull your boat out of storage in the spring, only to discover that mice have chewed through the wiring or spiders have made themselves at home. Now, you may have heard of tricks like tossing dryer sheets or Irish Spring soap inside your boat, and some boaters swear by these things, but in reality, the effectiveness is hit or miss. What works better are products designed specifically for this purpose. For rodents, there are scent-based repellents like Fresh Cab or peppermint oil sprays such as Rodent Sheriff that are proven to deter mice as well as other creatures. You can also use physical barriers like stuffing steel wool or copper mesh into small openings, or even protective rodent tape on wiring if you've had issues with this in the past. For spiders and bugs, try sprays made for boats like Starbright Spider Away or peppermint-based repellents. So there you have it, the 5 essential steps every boater should do before winter storage, plus a couple of extra steps for those with sterndrives and inboards or on-water systems, and a few other bonus tips as well. You do these things now, and you'll avoid costly mistakes and be ready for a smooth, trouble-free start to the boating season next year. Well, if you enjoyed this video or found it helpful, please click on that like button. Also, be sure to subscribe to my channel to get my weekly tips and insights to help you purchase, equip, and maintain your boat. In the meantime, thanks for watching, and I will see you on the water.